That was Becky's 2 a.m. Google search. And the second she showed me, I knew I was about to disappoint her. Wait, let me back up. Becky was referred to me after reaching a dead end with her doctor. She'd been having debilitating migraines, sleep disturbances, and a lot of stomach problems. And according to her doctor, this was all stemming from chronic stress. So Becky came into therapy for stress management. At least that's what we both thought. Becky wore a muted blush sweater, skinny jeans, gold studs, heels, and a pleasing smile. Before she even sat down, she asked how I was doing, apologized for the fuss, and said she really didn't know why she was here, but her doctor recommended it, so here we are. And at first, everything really did sound like stress. She had a pushy boss, a husband who had been in a car accident 2 years earlier, so she was the solo earner, 2 kids in dance, the schedule and the money, plus a mom who lived 5 minutes away with mobility issues. Becky was the person everybody called. If someone needed her to stay late, rearrange her schedule, move around her own needs, soften her answer, Becky made it work. So I'm sitting across from her thinking, okay, yeah, this is a lot. This is stress. But then she said something that made the whole thing feel different. She confessed, I know I need to say no sometimes. I just feel like such a bad person when I do. That's when she showed me that Google search. Why do I feel like a bad person for saying no? And that was the part I couldn't stop thinking about because Becky didn't need me to teach her the words. She already knew the words. She could say, oh, I'm sorry I can't help on Saturday. Thanks for thinking of us. We can't make it. Or that sounds like a lot of fun, but unfortunately, that doesn't work for us. The problem was what happened in her body before she even thinks about saying no. This clue literally changed everything for me. Becky's body reacted before anyone even responded. No one had even gotten mad or guilt tripped her yet or sent a long text arguing with her. No, nothing technically happened, and her chest would get tight, her stomach would drop, heart would race, and this huge feeling would come over her like she had done something awful. So if the feeling is already there before anyone else reacts, then maybe this really wasn't about the other person. Maybe something inside Becky was already expecting danger. I didn't have that kind of language back then. I just knew something wasn't adding up. Becky and I wrapped up for the day, and as soon as she walked out, I rushed to my mentor's door, knocked on it, and I confessed that I was in over my head. My new client needed something I just couldn't give her. He listened, and I was certain he was about to say, no problem, I will transfer her to so-and-so. And instead, he said something that would end up changing my life forever. Looks like it's time for you to do some more digging. So I did, and I was so overwhelmed, but I was also determined because I wasn't just trying to figure this out for Becky. I was also trying to figure this out for myself too. Becky was searching for the same answer I'd been searching for over 30 years. Except I was the therapist and I didn't have the answer, and I was terrified that I was about to fail one of my very first clients. So while I kept researching in the background, Becky and I met weekly, and I just took her through things that I had already tried in the past. Just because it didn't work for me doesn't mean they wouldn't work for her. So we did self-worth exercises, practiced mantras, mapped out boundaries. We role-played in my office. And week after week, she would come back feeling bad, frozen, and unable to follow through with her necessary no's. Basically, Becky was stuck just like me. And that's when I realized we might be looking in the wrong place. This wasn't about finding a better script or knowing you deserve boundaries, like you're worth it. No, something older was going on here. So to understand Becky, I had to go back to where her body first learned what no meant. And this is where I want you to meet Sarah. Remember Sarah from part 1? I'll put that right here. She's the little girl who had steady parents. She grew up in a home where her needs weren't too much, her feelings were allowed to exist, and when she had a bad day, her mom could comfort her without making the whole thing about herself. Becky, on the other hand, she grew up in a very different home. Even though she was the same age, her mom would go silent for days if Becky didn't do what she wanted. Her dad had a temper, and if Becky had a bad day, her mom always had it worse. By the time Sarah and Becky were 6 or 7, both of their little bodies had learned rules. Nothing written on paper and magnetized to the fridge. No, these were rules written into the body. For Sarah, her first rule was, my needs don't make this house scary. For Becky, the rule was very different. And to show you what I mean, let's go back to the birthday party invitation. There was a 7th birthday party for the class bully. When the invitation showed up, Sarah told her mom immediately she didn't want to go. Now, Sarah's mom didn't say, okay, right away. I mean, she was unsure. She wanted to make sure she was still making Sarah, push outside of her comfort zone. But after she sat down with Sarah and asked her some questions, she heard her out, accepted Sarah's no, and then RSVP'd not attending. In that moment, Sarah's 7-year-old body, she learned something really simple. I said no. My mom was hesitant, maybe a little disappointed, but nothing bad happened. I'm still safe and loved. Now let's put that same word in Becky's kitchen. Becky puts the invitation on the counter and her mom gets excited. I guess this is a family that Becky's mom wants to be connected to, and she believes Becky needs to be at that party. So when Becky says, I don't want to go, the room changes. Her mom gets quiet. Her face drops. She looks at Becky like, what's wrong with you? For the next 2 days, Becky's mom barely looks at her. She's cold, distant, completely shut down. Becky's body learned something completely different from Sarah. I said no, and the room got cold, and love pulled away. My no made me unsafe. And this is the part that really, really matters. Sarah and Becky said the same word, no. The word isn't the problem. It's the house that taught them what that word meant. That's how a teeny tiny word can become a body memory. And this is where Becky's story starts to touch mine. For me, I had a wonderful dad who also had a temper. And I had to witness him get physical with my brothers if they ever said no to him. So I'm a lot younger than my siblings. They swear I wasn't an accident. But as a little girl, I watched a dad I idolized hurt brothers who I absolutely loved while my mom sat frozen in fear. No to me did not feel like a preference or a boundary. It felt like someone I care about is in danger. And when you're a kid and the temperature in the room changes like that, that's not small. Your parents are your whole world. I mean, they literally provide you food, shelter, safety, and connection. So when connection gets cold, your body doesn't say, interesting, my parent is emotionally dysregulated. No, your body screams, fix this. Say yes, stay small, don't make it worse, keep the peace. That's the map our bodies build. When I do this, the room stays safe. When I do that, the room gets scary. This map is built in moments. The look on someone's face, the way the air feels after you disappoint them, silence at dinner, the way your stomach drops when you hear a certain type of footstep, or when a dad says, I'll remember that. And then years later, you can be sitting in your own home, in your own house, holding your phone, living your life, and your body still reacts like you're back in that scary, cold kitchen. If you've ever had the thought, why does a no to my neighbor feel like I'm doing something unforgettable? This is why. Your nervous system doesn't check the date. It doesn't stop and say, oh gosh, I don't need to worry, you're 38 now. No, it just sees the old cues. Someone might be disappointed, pull away, think I'm selfish, and that old alarm starts firing. That's why Becky could be in her own home typing a very normal sentence, sorry, I can't help on Saturday, and feel like something terrible was about to happen. Her body saw the text, but it also felt that scary cold kitchen. And this is where the whole thing started to change for me. Becky kept calling it guilt. I kept calling it guilt. Everyone calls it, I'm just sick with this sinking feeling of guilt. Whether it's boundary guilt, mom guilt, Catholic guilt, daughter guilt, people-pleasing guilt, we all have these names for it. But the more I looked at what's actually happening in Becky's body, the more I started to think, I don't actually think this is guilt. Because guilt makes sense. If I lied to someone, I should feel bad. If I snapped at my kid, I should repair it. If I broke a promise, I should own it. That type of guilt has a job. It helps us go back and make something right. But Becky hadn't done anything wrong. She hadn't lied, hurt someone, or broken a promise. All she did was type one normal sentence. Sorry, I can't help on Saturday. We have a dance recital. And her body reacted like she had committed a crime. That's when I realized the feeling had the wrong name. The sticker says guilt, but underneath it was the old feeling from her house growing up. The cold room, the silent mom, that look that says, you're making my life harder right now. That feeling wasn't saying, you hurt somebody, go fix it. It was saying, you're bad, you're the problem, take it back before they pull away. That is shame. For a lot of us, that shame got trained into us by people just trying to get through the day. And I want to be super careful here because I don't believe that parents sat around thinking, How can I mess up my child's nervous system today? No, my fundamental belief is that parents do the best they can with the tools they have. Some parents just don't have that many tools. They may have a few tactics that work and they use them because it gets the kid in the car, it gets the homework done, keeps the house clean, or makes life feel more manageable for the overwhelmed parent. Coldness works well, guilt works too. Withdrawal, that's another good one. But shame is the quickest way to get your kid to take action. How could you do this to me after everything I've done for you? You should be ashamed of yourself. Fine, don't help me. I'll never ask again. Shame works all right, but what works for the parent in the moment can get stored in the child's body as danger. And then that child grows up and becomes Becky. She has a nice sweater, gold studs, a pleasing smile, a doctor that tells her she has stress, and she's up at night searching on Google, asking why she feels like a bad person for just saying no. Now the real secret starts coming into focus. Becky wasn't too nice or weak or broken. She was trying to avoid that awful body feeling that used to show up when love went away. We were told that feeling was guilt, and guilt is your moral compass, which means if you feel it, you're doing something wrong. That's a lie, because for Becky, for me, maybe even you, the feeling isn't always about guilt. Sometimes it's shame hiding underneath the guilt sticker. It's the old alarm from the old house where we once needed it to survive. And once I saw this, I finally understood why the other tools had failed us. We can't mantra our way out of a body memory or self-worth worksheet our way out of a nervous system that still thinks you're about to lose connection. There's nothing wrong with these tools. They're amazing, but Becky and I, it wasn't our first step. We weren't starting with wrong thoughts. We were starting with miswired bodies. So after Becky and I practiced our planned pauses from part 1, that's a mouthful, we added one small thing after we said no. Not while we're in a fight or spiraling through a slew of text messages, just after we say one calm no. After we put our phone down and our alarm starts sounding. We put one hand on our chest, we add a little bit of pressure, we take longer exhales than inhales, and we ask one question. How old does this feeling feel? That's it. Not, am I allowed to say no? Was I mean? Oh my gosh, do they hate me? Just, how old does this feeling feel? Because when Becky asked that question, something shifted. She could feel that this wasn't really about not being able to help on Saturday. It felt like the birthday party in that scary cold kitchen with her mom, and that tiny bit of space matters. Now, instead of being inside the alarm, Becky could notice the alarm and she could say, okay, this is that old feeling. I have a tight chest now. My heart is racing. Impending doom is settling into my gut. The urge to take back my no is so overwhelming and I want to over-explain. But this isn't proof that I've done anything wrong. An alarm that once kept her safe was simply misfiring, saying, this used to be dangerous, you should pay attention here. And the work was to show her body very slowly that she wasn't in that house anymore. So if you are trying this with me, I would only start after you have had some time with those planned pauses from part 1. And I'm not saying this works for everybody, but this worked for me and this definitely worked for Becky. I started this part once I could sit for 3 minutes straight, breathe, notice my 5 senses, and not feel like I want to crawl out of my skin. That's when I started to do this after my small no. So how this works is you say your no, you set your phone down, you put one hand on your chest, you breathe in for 4 and out for 6. And while you're doing that, you ask yourself, how old does this feeling feel? Then just look around the room that you're actually sitting in and go through your 5 senses. I see the lamp. I hear the fan. I feel my chair. I smell the coffee. I'm here. I'm not there. This is now. That was then. I am safe. This might sound so small, and I fought it too. I wanted a big answer. I wanted a trick that stopped the guilt completely, a script that magically made everybody understand me perfectly. And I really, really wanted a way to get around this part. But for Becky and for me, the shift really started when I stopped trying to win an argument with the alarm and I started to help my body learn where I am right now. For most of my life, I thought the voice telling me that I was selfish or I was a bad person for saying no was my conscience. And I was scared that if I ever stopped listening to that, I would become someone who didn't care about people. But what I know now, and what took me over 30 years to understand, is that my conscience and my shame are definitely not the same thing. My conscience helps me repair when I actually hurt somebody, and my shame tells me that I'm wrong for having needs. And learning to tell the difference between those two has changed my life. And it's changed Becky's too, because Becky's not a bad daughter. She's not a bad friend or a bad employee. She was a person who learned a long time ago that no could make the room turn cold and scary. That's a wound. But the good news is, wounds can heal.